Hello, Chris Godinez, licensed professional counselor, also the host of We Need to Talk on every Sunday at noon, and then I post it up to Facebook, and then I do Wednesdays, I do questions like this, and then post it up to Facebook. This video is for educational and informational purposes only. The views and opinions stated herein are mine and mine alone. They do not represent the ACA, the APA, or any other therapist for that matter. I would like to thank my sponsor, BetterHelp. BetterHelp, betterhelp.com/Chris Godinez. They are an online therapy company. They are worldwide. So if you are anywhere in the world, you want to get on with a therapist that is licensed professional, master's level or PhD level, go to betterhelp.com/Chris Godinez. Fill out a couple of questions and they will set you up with somebody here in the US of A. So betterhelp.com/Chris Godinez. Okay, so clearly the saga of the air conditioner is still going on, so we're still at a hotel until we get that fixed. Yay! So John is at the house dealing with the workmen and the fixing of the ceiling and the yay. So anyway, it is what it is. All right, so let's let's dive into some questions. I don't want kids because of the way I was abused by my parents. Is this normal? Yes, it is. Absolutely. When we've been raised by abusive parents, toxic parents, parents that were not very good, it definitely makes you question whether or not you want to have children. And there's a whole bunch of stuff that goes along with that. It's like, what's the family history? Now, in my family history, on my mom's side, there was schizophrenia. You know, my Uncle Jack had schizophrenia, and I told John when we got married, I'm like, I don't think it's a good idea for us to have kids. Not only because of that, but also in my family history, my great-grandmother got into an argument with my great-grandfather and literally shot the lower part of his arm off. Yeah, don't want to be propagating those genes. So, yeah, and that was on my mom's side. So then on my dad's side, there was all sorts of personality disorders, alcoholism, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And on John's side of the family, there was also a lot of issues. And so we just both kind of went, we'll just be great aunts and uncles. Yeah, let's just do that. Let's just raise other people's kids. So that's kind of what we decided to do. So yeah, it is very common because, you were raised by horrible parents. You didn't have a great example of how to be a good parent. And so a lot of people do question. It's like, do I really want kids? And just because you've had a not great upbringing does not mean that you're going to be a terrible parent yourself. If you are in therapy, if you are working on yourself, if you are conscious, if you are aware, if you are awake, if you are mindful, if you are making sure that you're not repeating the fleas that you picked up from mom and dad, then you're going to be okay. And it's okay to have kids. If you're having kids to try to prove your parents wrong, if you haven't gone to therapy, if you're not working on your stuff, if you haven't squished the fleas, then please, for the love of God and all that's holy, don't have children. Do you see where I'm going with that? It's all a matter of, what is your intent? Why do you want to have children? Is the background relatively healthy so that you're not going to be dealing with schizophrenia or bipolar or things like that could impact the child? Are you making a decision based on really clear thinking about it, or are you making a decision based on fear? Are you making a decision based on, I'll show you? You don't want to do that. If you're going to have kids, having kids is a serious issue. I don't think people take it seriously enough. I really don't. And I really applaud those couples that sit down and talk about it before they get together, really get together. And before they start having children, and really discuss, how are we going to parent? What is your view on this? What is your view on that? How do we want to do this? Do we even want children? How many children do we want? Can we afford it? Let's crunch the numbers. Let's do this. Let's do that. I really do applaud those couples that do the background work. It's like, do we even want children? For John and I, it was a combination of both of our parents not that great, and family history stuff. And we like traveling. We like our dogs. We like, that kind of thing. We much more enjoy the role, I think, of great aunt, great uncle, where we get to go play with everybody. So, and like I said, we kind of did the genetic thing and we're like, I don't think this is a good idea, because the odds of getting somebody with a disorder really bad is pretty good. So, so there's that. And, and then you couple with the not great parenting, it's like, okay, I don't want to be that person. I don't want to risk harming another generation. And obviously both of us have been in therapy and we've worked on ourselves and the whole thing, and obviously we're not doing that even as great uncle, great aunt. So, but these are things you need to think about. It's like, if you have not had great parenting, you need to learn how to be a great parent. So take parenting classes, read up all the books, recognize where your parents went south and what you would have done differently, or how you would have liked to have been treated differently, and then do that with your kids. It drives me crazy when people treat children as an extension of themselves or as little adults, and they're not. And abusers do that. Abusers are the ones that look at little kids and try to force them to behave like an adult when they're a little kid. Cognitively, they can't do it. And so then they get mad at them when they don't act like a little adult. So really, it's working through with a therapist all the things that went south in your childhood. How can you mitigate that having your own children, and realize you're going to be triggered when those kids hit those developmental ages that you were when your parents were doing the weird toxic stuff. So it's going to trigger a lot of stuff. You've got to be prepared for it. Have a therapist. I can't stress that enough. CPTSD from Surviving to Thriving by Pete Walker. Really work it. The Disease to Please, Harriet Breaker, Boundaries. Inner Child Workbook, Catherine Taylor or Lucia Cappuccioni. Any of those books, any of those inner child workbooks would be good. You want to work on all of that stuff so that when you do have children, either you don't get triggered as badly, or you get triggered and you're able to recognize it and you're able to do something different that your parents didn't do. So there is that. Yes, it is normal. It is absolutely normal. Everybody who is a survivor of abuse questions themselves. Do I really want children? Do I really want to do that? I decided not to because of the medical stuff and the backgrounds on both sides of the family, plus the weird upbringing that we had. And, but others did have kids and the kids are doing okay. So, it just depends on, are you working on yourself? Are you preparing yourself for all of the triggers that are going to come up? Have you worked through the way you would like to do things differently? Are you and your spouse on the same page as far as raising the kids? These are all things that need to be talked about. So yeah, that is totally a normal thought to have. How do I find a lawyer that understands high conflict divorce? Okay, word of mouth is the best way. Word of mouth is seriously the best way. So when you go in to speak to an attorney, you're going to ask them a whole bunch of questions, just like you do when you're trying to find a therapist. You need to make sure that you find an attorney that understands high conflict divorces, that understands somebody who's going to use intimidation and emotionalism and bullying to try to get their way in court. Okay, and they may find an attorney that is very similar to them. Because remember, a lot of attorneys are narcissists. A lot of judges are narcissists because they're attracted to those positions of power. I do remember a few years ago hearing about somebody saying that their attorney got intimidated by the opposing counsel's attorney because the opposing counsel's attorney was an absolute narcissist and was just using the intimidation and blustering and raging and the whole thing. You need an attorney that is going to be cool as a cucumber, poker player, not show any emotion, not give anything away. So word of mouth is honestly the best way to find an attorney that knows what they're doing. You listen in on the divorce groups and see who they've used, and you ask questions. And when you're talking to the attorney, you need to ask them questions like, do you understand high conflict? Do you understand what it's like to deal with somebody that's going to try to run the bill up? How are you going to mitigate that? That's a good question to ask them. Because a good attorney, one that's in it for the right reasons, and I know they're few and far between, but they will stop the other person from attempting to run up the bills by doing things like, okay, well, if you're going to keep doing this, we're going to ask for attorney's fees. Okay, well, if you're going to keep doing this, we're going to ask the judge for that. You see where I'm going with that? You want to read the book, The No Nonsense Guide to Divorce by Lori Hellis. Really good book. It really demystifies the whole legal system, because I don't think a lot of people understand how it's really run. You're going to ask questions. You're going to ask a lot of questions. Going into divorce support groups is a great way to find an attorney, honestly, because you can talk to people and say, hey, did you like your attorney? Was there a lot of conflict in your divorce? Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And you find one that knows what it is to deal with somebody who's personality disordered. Seriously. And you can ask them that. Have you dealt with a divorce where the other spouse is personality disordered because they're doing this, and this? How are you going to stop them? You make them talk, and you make them, and remember, they're not going to be warm and fuzzy. They are not going to be warm and fuzzy. I think a lot of people mistake that as, oh, they're really cold and they're really this. So my buddy Brent, who's my go-to guy in Mesa, Brent Bryson, I love him. He is not emotional. He's not until you get to know him. But he's very, no emotion, poker face, not warm and fuzzy, the whole thing. And that's what you kind of want, because what a narcissist will do is they will hire somebody who is as emotionally deregulated as they are. And so I have seen attorneys that will just, roar and rage and what I love about Brent is he'll just sit there and be like, like, not impressed, and the more this other guy was raging, the calmer and saner Brent looked, you know what I'm saying? And that's kind of what you want. So you want to ask a lot of questions. You want to ask around. You want to go to divorce groups. You want to find out who they've used. Ask them about their high conflict divorce, that kind of thing. A lot of attorneys will say, oh, yeah, I know how to deal with high conflict, and they don't. So you want to get word of mouth. Word of mouth is honestly the best way to do it. And then when you interview the attorney, you do the same thing that you do when you're interviewing a therapist. Do you understand trauma? Do you understand what this idiot is doing to the kids? Do you understand? And then you got to trust your gut, because some attorneys will say, oh, yeah, of course I do. Read up on them, read reviews, talk to other people, word of mouth, that's always the best way to do it. And trust your gut. It's really trusting your gut. If they say they do it, but you don't get the feeling they do, then don't go with them, and interview them. You want to interview them to make sure that they are the best attorney for you. So there is that. Okay, I have gone no contact with my family and I feel guilty. How do I cope? Okay, going no contact with a family is difficult. It is not easy. Not gonna lie to you. And families are notorious for living in denial, flying monkeys, etc. They want the status quo, because as soon as a scapegoat, especially if a scapegoat leaves a family and goes no contact, now the rest of the family has got to play a game of not it, and somebody else is going to be declared the scapegoat. So they try to suck the person back in. So fear, obligation, guilt. If your family is using fear, obligation, or guilt to keep you in a relationship with them, they are toxic. You simply stay no contact. No matter what they say, no matter what they do, no matter what kind of, they pull to try to pull you back into it. Because really what they're looking for is more narcissistic supply. They're looking for the drama. They're looking for the chaos. They're looking for you to, toe the line and come back to the fold, so to speak. If you've gone no contact, you stay no contact. You absolutely stay no contact, especially if they're toxic and they're abusive and they're using fear, obligation, and guilt. So, yep, don't go back. Don't fall for it. So how do you cope? Get with a good therapist. Get with a good therapist. Work on that guilt. Work on the inner child workbook by Lucia Cappuccioni or Catherine Taylor, or any inner child workbook. Work on self-esteem. The Self-Esteem Workbook by Glenn Schiraldi. They are counting on you caving, because you've always done that in the past. We've all done that in the past. We've always just caved because of the guilt. You might want to write the guilt a goodbye letter. Dear guilt, bleep the bleepity bleep bleep out of bleeping bleep you. I'm not falling for you anymore. Thanks for playing. It's not going to work. Have a nice life. And by have a nice life, I mean go pound sand. So stop using the guilt. It's not going to work. Screw you. Get out of my life. Do you see where I'm going with that? And you get mad at the guilt, and you get mad at the person using the guilt, because guilt is a manipulation. Fear, obligation, guilt. It's all a manipulation. It's a way, it's a chess move. It's a way to make you come back to the fold. Get angry. Get angry. And then take the letter out to the barbecue, read it out loud once, burn it. Do not send it. It's not going to give you the relief you think it will. And in fact, it will just create more drama. So don't send it. Burn it. Let it go. And then you're going to block them. Block. Ignore. If you can't block them, ignore them. You know, if you can't ignore them, block them. You know what I'm saying? It's like block and ignore. And at some point, if they continue to do this guilt thing, or, you know, sending 100,000 million different emails and 100,000 million different texts, you may consider that harassment, and you may want to consider a restraining order. So, yeah, I mean, if it gets bad enough, yeah, you betcha. So, because you have the right to go no contact. Just because they're family doesn't mean you owe them anything. And a lot of families, disordered and toxic, behave as if you owe them something just because they gave birth to you. You don't. So remember that. Get with a good therapist. CPTSD from Surviving to Thriving, Pete Walker. Get all the books I recommend. And then whenever you feel guilty, no. Thank you, thought stopping. Hello, guilt. I hear you. I see you. I don't owe them jack diddly squat. Bye-bye. Bye-bye now. Go pound sand. Bye-bye. Bye-bye now, right when you get work. Bye-bye. That's what you're going to have to do. And just remind yourself, you don't owe them anything. You don't. That can be part of your mirror work. Hi, good to see you. Have a great day. You know what? It's okay for you to tell the guilt to go away. And you know what? You don't owe them anything. And then walk out. And keep working on that, because abusers love to make us feel obligated. Love to. That's a good way to get us hooked back in. So yeah, so work on that. Okay. Why do narcissists seem to look for quiet borderlines? Okay. So borderline personality disorder is born of trauma. Okay. Borderlines tend to be very, very, very sensitive. There's a lot of emotions going on there. They do have empathy. They do have that empathy cog until they get further down the line, and then they don't. But down at the bottom of the scale, the quieter ones, they have empathy. They have a lot of emotions. Borderlines use that sensitivity. They eat them up for breakfast and spit them out for lunch. It's a narcissistic supply for them. It's the constant drama. It's the constant chaos. It's the constant tears. Your tears to them are delicious. So remember, narcissists are evil. Let's just call it what it is. They are evil, and they love your tears. That is narcissistic supply for them. That is their cocaine. That is their cocaña. So they're like, oh yes, keep crying. Oh yes, keep being hurt. Oh yes, keep being angry. Excuse me. They get off on that. They really truly do. They get off on that. So you've got to remember, they eat up borderlines. They do. I'm going to sneeze. No, excuse me. We've been having dust storms. Yay! So they eat up borderlines because of the emotionality, because of the emotional dysregulation, because of the sensitivity, and because of the trauma. So because borderline is born of trauma, they are looking for how they can abuse. And they know when they've hit one, because the person becomes upset and cries and emotionally dysregulates and the whole thing. And oh, that is their cocaine. And that is why they are attracted to borderlines. So yeah, whenever I had one person a few years ago that would continually email me or you know, IM me and want to know how they could attract borderlines. And I was like, who are you and why? Well, obviously they were abusive and they wanted to manipulate and control. And I just was like, you need to stop contacting me, period. So yeah, narcissists will try to pretend to be, Oh, I'm just asking because no, no, no. You can trust your gut. So yeah, they are attracted to borderlines because they can more easily abuse them, and your tears are delicious to them. So that is why they do that. So they're evil. They're just plain old evil. So and it's hard for a borderline, because once a borderline gets involved with a narcissist, there is that trauma bond, which reminds them of the trauma bond from the childhood. So again, if you are borderline personality disorder, you find yourself in a relationship with an abusive narcissist, that's redundant, a narcissist, they're all abusive. You find yourself in a relationship with a narcissist, for the love of God, get out. Get out. They are going to chew you up and spit you out, and it's not going to be pretty. Get with a good DBT therapist, dialectic behavioral therapy. That is the best therapy to help you emotionally regulate and to understand your worth and to get the hell out, because you do not deserve to be treated like that by anybody. So there is that. I am so angry. Almost all my family sided with my ex. What do I do to make them understand? Oh boy. Okay. So flying monkeys are one of two things. They are either people who are just ignorant, they don't understand abuse, or they are minor narcissists themselves and they are aligning themselves with the abuser. If your family is supporting your ex and your ex is abusive and you've already told them that, it's time to go no contact. It is. They are showing you who they are. Now, if you haven't told them the extent of the abuse, if you think they're open, you could talk to them and say, hey, I don't think you understand. This is what I went through, and you're supporting my ex is really a betrayal. I just want you to know that. And if they still continue to support them, that's when you give them the middle finger and you wipe your hands and you go no contact. So a lot of times families will support the ex because they're minor narcissists themselves and they enjoy the drama, especially if you were the scapegoat of the family. So it's just another way to abuse you. And if that's the case, go no contact and consider yourself free. Seriously, it's like, you know what? These people are not really my family. The way they're behaving, that is not what Ohana does, seriously. So you get rid of them, go no contact, block them, and of course they're going to be like, oh, what did I do? Let them. It's not your problem. You go live your life, get with a good therapist, and work through the betrayal. This is a betrayal, and it is. And yeah, and sometimes the abusive, toxic families do that, unfortunately. With your anger, write and burn a letter. If you've explained to them what the abuse was like and they're still supporting your ex, they're showing you who they are. Be done. Be done. Just let them go. Let them go. They may be family, but they're family in name only. They're not family in reality. Okay. My narcissistic mom is dying, really. Apparently she pretended to be dying before, which they do. They use the I'm dying Hoover. But my narcissistic mom is dying, really. I have so many emotions. How do I cope? Okay, again, get with a good therapist. So when I was a teenager, I knew my dad was going to die at some point. He was always doing suicidal gestures, suicidal ideations, and I knew it was a matter of time, and I started therapy because I wanted to make sure I was okay in case he dropped dead. So get with a good therapist and get with a good trauma therapist that can help you process all of the conflicting emotions. And there's going to be conflicting emotions. It's called complicated grief. Complicated grief is where there's love and hate and abuse maybe going on and, other things going on, but you still love them or, and things like that. It's complicated. It's complicated. So it's called complicated grief. So you want to get with a good therapist to help you untangle all of that and to process all of that. It's normal to grieve the death of an abuser. It's like I always say, it's like they're still your parent. You're still a good person. You're still going to grieve the loss of what could have been. That's just what we do. When my dad finally did die, it wasn't so much that I was grieving him dying. I was grieving the loss of, that's it, game over. There's no chance for him to ever be a good dad. There's no chance for him to ever be the parent or the person that he could have been if he'd been sane, you know? And so you're grieving the loss of that illusion. You're grieving that loss of, if only, you're grieving the loss of whatever. So yeah, so get with a good therapist. That's going to help you the most. So you're going to need support through the process of the parent dying, because that's stressful and it's sad. You're going to have a ton of emotion. It's going to be all over the place. Anger, sadness, acceptance, non-acceptance, you name it. It's going to be there. So get with a good trauma therapist and have them help you, because that's going to be needed. And if there's family members involved, like if there's other family members involved, you're going to need support, because people get weird over dying. So the 2 events in life that will tell you who people are birthings, 3 events: birthings, weddings, and funerals. And people get weird over those 3 things, and how they behave and how they act will tell you everything you need to know. And so some of the people that you thought would be supportive turned out not to be. Some of the people you didn't think would be supportive were. So, it's going to be a lot of emotions. So get with a good therapist so that you have support. And start working through all of it. And all of the emotions are valid. All of them. Anger, happy, sad, loving them, not loving them, hating them, not hating them. It's all valid. It's all valid. So be gentle with you. Absolutely. Okay. Oh, dear Lord. My abusive parents constantly ask me for money and use guilt if I don't. How do I draw a boundary? Okay. I have seen abusive parents, toxic parents, turn their kids into the breadwinner. I have seen them hit the kids up for money when they're not working, or worse, they're working, but they're gambling it all away. They're hitting the casinos every weekend, or every week or whatever. So you listen to me now, believe me later. You do not owe them anything, not money, not anything. And what these parents will do is, oh, I can't pay the rent if you don't give me money. We'll be evicted if you don't give me money. I can't buy food if you don't give me money. Okay, did you go gambling? Oh, you did? Okay, well then that's a choice. And I choose not to support your gambling habit. Or did you go spend $4,000 at a liquor store? Oh, well, you know what? I choose not to support your drinking habit. So are they going to use guilt? Absolutely. Fear, obligation, guilt, manipulation that narcissistic, disordered, toxic parents use. You're going to have to start saying no. It's not your job. It's not your job to take care of them. It's not your job to give them money. If they want money, then they should either get a job, stop drinking excessive amounts of alcohol, and stop gambling, because those are usually the 3 things that are going on as to why parents are asking their kids for money. So, and that is in a toxic family, not because there's disability or anything like that. That I can totally understand. But, if they were abusive and they were absentee or abusive, toxic when you were growing up, and now they're turning around and going, you owe me? How do you draw boundaries? Get with a good trauma therapist. Again, get with a good trauma therapist and learn to say no, and I mean it. And then you stick to that no matter what they say, no matter what guilt trip they use. Now, that little kid inside of you is going to be, oh my God, no, because it's a people pleaser. So you want to read up on people pleasing. You want to read The Disease to Please by Harriet Breaker. You want to get boundaries like a boss. You want to be able to say no, and I mean it. And when the guilt pops up, send the guilt off. It's a manipulation. It's used to make you do what they want you to do. And if they're gambling, if they're drinking, and they're not working, and they could be working, and they're intentionally getting rid of their money and expecting you to pay the rent, you let them suffer the natural consequences of their behavior. Remember, narcissists operate on the level of a 2-year-old. And they parentify their kids. So they start looking at the kid as a parent. And that's not fair, and that's not right. And you are under no obligation to take care of them. You don't owe them jack diddly squat. You don't. So you write a goodbye letter to the guilt, and you get with a good trauma therapist to help you process the ongoing onslaught of you need to take care of me, you need to take care of me, you need to take care of me. You got to get that people-pleasing codependency stuff handled, because otherwise these people will never stop, and it's never going to be enough. Even if you set them up, they would still be asking for money, because with a narcissist, it's more, me, I, more my genitals. Seriously. That's how they think. So yeah, absolutely. How are we doing on time? Oh, okay. All right, my loves. This next week, I still don't know what I'm talking about. I think it's talking about how long it takes to get over them, or why can't I get over them. So I think that's the topic. I'll double check. I'll post it on We Need to Talk as soon as I go and look, because it's been, with the house, it's been a little, whoo. So anyway, all right, my loves, you guys have a great week, and I will talk to you on Sunday. Bye.